When I made my Viking sword, it actually started out life considerably less grand. I actually need to still make a video out of all of the snippets of stuff that I shot and all the photographs that I took when I made this. But the initial part of the project was this tiny little sample piece. I needed to just work out whether or not I could even attempt to grind a blade profile that had a fuller in it with the limited stuff that I had available. I had an angle grinder which I was using clamped in a vice end on and having to physically move the piece back and forth, and I had no idea whether that was possible. So I happen to have this lying around. This is the circular saw blade, an old stone cutting blade with these carbide teeth on. So I knew that with the carbide teeth being there, it probably wasn't a high carbon steel. But I used a piece of it to make this test knife, which actually does hold an edge. The metal from the blade is actually hardenable, though it's obviously some kind of a low to mid carbon heavily alloyed tool steel, but it is hardenable, and it's not what you'd think of traditionally as a good blade steel, but you can make blades out of it, so potentially ruin it. So the plan is, I have some of this 8mm by 40mm flat bar. And I want to cut a test piece, similar to the test piece that I made for this blade, so that I can work out exactly how far I can expect to draw out the material. I need to work out if I can hand bevel with a hammer, or start the bevels that I want to do with a hammer, and how much that will change the width, the dimension of the material. And make a test piece as part of the planning for my next project, because I have to go back to work the day after tomorrow for a couple of weeks and won't have as much time in the forge, so I can use that time to plan what I want to do, and this will give me some information on which to base those plans. Okay, because this is going to be forged and I'm going to need to have some space to hold it with tongs, I've actually decided to go with 6 inches. 6 inches is just a little over a third of the length of the piece that I can cut out of that saw blade. So the maths is still quite easy to extrapolate up. Okay, I've taken this down from about 8mm down to maybe 5. Yeah, that's approximately 5mm. And 6 inches. has become 8 inches. So, assuming there's some irregularities there, I've exchanged a fairly proportional amount of the thickness, about a quarter of the thickness to an extra quarter of the length. So. Right. That's forged down with just the start of an edge bevel. So I've got something to chase back up towards the middle. Okay, we have the wobbly table that I had previously. 5mm M8 tap. Set screw. That should now be rock solid and set at 90 degrees. Hooray! Victory! Okay, now I've got this squared up along the profile. If you look at the actual blade profile, I think what I'm going to do is try and do a diamond grind. So now I need to work out what angle I need to reach the center here and the center there to give me a full flat diamond profile blade. So. Okay, so I've pretty much established what I kind of already knew, which is that I can grind this to profile, but now I've got a better idea of the angle, very shallow angle that I need. The question is, rather than just grinding this to profile, can I forge this closer to profile? That's enough to essentially tell me what I need to know. Let's have a look at this thing. Okay, I've learned several things over the course of this experiment. 1. I can forge bevels on. That's actually a doable thing. It's quite challenging, but it is doable. 2. I have no good grinding options. To achieve this profile with a nice central ridge was a mixture of angle grinder, some belt grinder vertically, though if I'm going to do something sword length, I'm going to have to cut this off the top here so I can expose this surface, so I can use the whole length of the sword blade from the top and the bottom to use the table portion of this. But once it's roughed out, the only really good option I have for getting a nice tight ridge line is good old-fashioned elbow grease and draw filing with a mill file. Though I have noticed, because I didn't start out initially with a plan to completely forge the bevels in, that I've got these low spots. I'm going to have to be super careful when I forge the bar out. But theoretically speaking, diamond profile blade is doable. It's going to be a couple of weeks before I get a chance to actually start making this, because I'll be in work for a while. But it's conceivable. A decent belt grinder would make my life a hell of a lot easier, but it's a doable thing maybe. We'll have to wait and see. If you want to find out whether or not I actually do manage to do this, then hit the subscribe button, and hopefully in a couple of weeks my next project will start. Awesome.